Morning dear students, welcome to today's English class. Today we are going to deal with the lesson Fire, Friend and Foe. Fire is a friend and at the same time it is a foe also. Foe means enemy. So we can consider fire as friend, as a friend and as an enemy. So let's learn more about fire. Early man didn't know what fire was, but he must have seen the damage it could cause. So early man means ancient men who were living in forest. They didn't know what fire was, but he might have seen the damages caused by the fire. He must have watched lightning and volcanoes long before he began to use fire himself. Before using fire, the early man might have watched the lightning and the volcanic eruption. Okay, so he must have watched fire in the form of volcanoes and lightning. Fire was powerful and dangerous and he was frightened. And early man frightened fire because it was very powerful and it was very dangerous. If we cannot control fire, it will be more dangerous. So early man didn't know how to control fire, how to make fire. So he was frightened seeing the damages caused by fire. Fire may have puzzled early man, but we now know that fire is the result of a chemical reaction. Early man might have confused seeing the fire because he didn't know how to control it. But we now know that fire is the result of a chemical reaction. When the oxygen in the air combines with carbon and hydrogen in a fuel, a chemical reaction takes place. Energy in the form of heat and light is released in this process. This is what we call fire. So, how fire comes? It is a chemical reaction. Okay, when the oxygen in the air combines with carbon and hydrogen in the fuel, a chemical reaction takes place and energy in the form of heat and light, it is called fire, it is released through this process. Three things we needed to make fire: fuel, oxygen and heat. Okay, we need three things to make fire. They are fuel, oxygen and heat. Wood, coal, cooking gas and petrol are some examples of fuel. Oxygen comes from the air. That is why when you blow on a smoldering paper, it often bursts into flame. So, the three things needed to make fire are fuel, oxygen and heat. The examples of fuels are wood, coal, cooking gas, petrol, etc. Paper. All these we can consider as fuel, and oxygen is already there in the air. So when heat comes, it will burn. Okay, that is why you can notice if there is a smoldering paper. Smoldering means burning slowly. Okay, if there is a slowly burning paper, it will burst. After some time, it will burst into flame, fire. The third thing needed to make fire is heat. Fuel and oxygen do not make fire by themselves, or else a newspaper or a stick lying in the open would catch fire on its own. So we need these three things to make fire. Okay, fuel and oxygen. If there is fuel, if there is oxygen, but if there is no heat, we cannot make fire. So in order to make fire, these three things are very important. Okay, if we avoid any one of these things, fire won't be there. Okay, we cannot make fire uh, if there is one thing is avoided. Okay, so we need these three things to make fire. To burn a piece of paper or wood, we heat it before it catches fire. So in order to uh, burn a paper or wood, there should be heat and oxygen also, because wood and paper, they are the fuel, and if there is a fuel, we need oxygen and heat to burn it. We generally do it with a lighted match. Every fuel has a particular temperature at which it begins to burn. This temperature is called the flash point or kindling temperature of the fuel. So each fuel, in order to get fire, in order to make fire, each fuel has a particular temperature. Okay, paper, we can burn paper very easily. Okay, but if it is a wood, we need some more time to get it burnt. So each fuel has a particular temperature at which it begins to burn. So this is called the flash point. It is sometimes said that fire is a good servant but a bad master. It only means that fire is very useful as long as it is kept under control. It is a good servant. Fire is a good servant. At the same time, it is a bad master also. Okay, if we cannot control the fire, it will cause damages. It will be very dangerous. For instance, we use it to cook our food, warm our homes in winter, and to generate electricity. Why fire is called our good servant or friend? Because we use fire to cook our food, warm our homes in winter, and to produce electricity. But on the other hand, if fire gets out of control, it can be very dangerous. But at the same time, if we cannot control the fire, it will be dangerous. Each year, thousands of homes and shops are damaged by fire. Vast areas of forest are also destroyed and hundreds of people are killed or injured. So if we cannot control, it can cause a lot of damages. It can destroy everything. So it is good, and if it is we cannot control, it will be bad also. Just as three things are needed to start a fire, there are three main ways in which a fire can be put out. Just we need three things to make fire. There are three ways by which we can put out the fire. We can stop the fire. In each one of the three things needed for burning is taken away. So if we wanted to put out a fire, to stop a fire, we have to uh, take away the three things, any one of the three things which needed to make fire. We want to take away these three things. That means we already said that we need fuel, oxygen, heat to make fire. So in order to control a fire, we want to avoid any one of these three things. For example, we can take away the fuel. If the fire has no fuel to feed on, no burning can take place. We often let a fire die out simply by not adding more fuel to it. So in order to stop a fire, we can remove the fuel. If there is no fuel, fire will not be there. The second way of putting out a fire is to prevent oxygen from reaching it. The second way to stop fire, to put out fire, is prevent the oxygen supply. Stop the oxygen supply. No supply of oxygen means no fire. Small fires can be put out or smothered with a damp blanket or a sack. Small fires, we can put out small fires by a wet blanket or sack. This stops oxygen reaching the burning material. Sometimes carbon dioxide is used to extinguish fire. It does not allow oxygen to reach the burning material. The third way of putting out a fire is to remove the heat. So the third way is taking away the heat. If the temperature can be brought down below the flash point, the fuel stops burning. We said that each fuel has a separate temperature to get it to be fired. Okay, so if the temperature is below the flash point, we can put out a fire. You blow on a burning matchstick or a candle to put it out. In doing so, you remove the hot air around the flame, bringing down its temperature below the flash point, and the candle goes out. Okay, so for example, if we blow on a burning matchstick or candle, the fire will be put out, isn't it? By doing so, what happens there? The temperature is going down. Okay, if the temperature comes below the flash point, it goes out. The candle light and goes out. Okay, so in that way we can put out the fire by blowing it. Yes, if it is a small fire. Sometimes water is sprayed on a fire. So water, in order to put out small fires, we can pour water on the fire. It absorbs heat from the burning fuel and lowers the temperature. So how the fire is stops there? Fire stops there because if we spray water on the fuel, then the temperature will become low. Okay, so the fire, so in that way we can put out the fire. The blanket of water also cuts off the supply of oxygen and the fire is extinguished. If we pour water on the fuel, the oxygen supply also stops. So it can be easily put out. Fire can be easily put out if we pour water on the fuels. So these are the three main ways to put out a fire. First, we have to remove the fuel. Then second way is prevent oxygen supply, and the third way is removing the heat. Some fires cannot be put out with water. If water is sprayed onto an oil fire, the oil will float to the top of the water and continue to burn. This can be very dangerous because water can flow quickly, carrying the burning oil with it and spreading the fire. Okay, so some fire cannot be put out by water. If it is a oil fire, what will happen? The oil will come above the water and it will continuously blow. Okay, and it will spread very easily and fire can be reached. It will be reached to many places. Okay, so we cannot put out fire if it is an oil fire by water. Water should also not be used on fires caused by electrical appliances. The person spraying water might receive an electric shock and be killed. A carbon dioxide extinguisher is the best thing to fight an electrical fire. So water is also not used to put out electrical fire. If we spray water on electrical fire, the person may get a shock and he may be died. So in such cases, carbon dioxide extinguisher is the best thing to put out a fire. We spend millions of rupees each year in fighting fires. and we spent more trying to find new ways of preventing fires from happening and getting out of control. On the whole, we have learned rather well to control fire and put it to good use in our everyday life. So we spent a lot of rupees against fighting fires. Okay, and we uh, trying to find out new ways also to prevent fire uh, spreading and stopping it. Okay. Long ago, there were no firemen. So, long years ago, there were no firefighters, firemen. When fire broke out, everybody became a firefighter. People formed human chains and passed buckets of water from a well or a pond to the blaze. Okay, so in olden days, every people are a firefighter. They formed human chains and carry buckets from one person to another from a well or pond. Now there are laws about building construction which ensure that space is left between buildings to reduce the fire risk. Every new building, especially a public place, must ensure observance of fire prevention norms. Now there are certain rules to construct buildings. Okay, each building should have a distance in order to, that is to reduce the fire risk. Bands of firefighting workers with special equipment known as fire brigades are there to put out fires. Now we have fire brigades, okay, fire force to stop fires. Firefighters are highly trained people. They possess many skills. They cut off electricity supply, knock down dangerous walls, spray water and other materials to bring fire under control. So firefighters has a lot of skill. They are trained people. So if there is a huge fire, they will cut off electricity, they will break the walls, okay, they will spray water, etc. to put out the fire. They are also trained in first aid so that they can help people suffering from burns or from the effects of smoke. Okay, they are also trained people in uh, first aid. That means they know how to help people suffering from burns or other damages. Okay, they know how to save people. The discovery of fire and its uses helped early man to cope with nature better and gradually adopt a settled mode of life. So the discovery of fire helped people, early man, ancient man, to adjust with the nature and to live a better life. Fire is still worshipped in many parts of the world, and we worship fire in many parts of the world. Still we are worshipping fire, considering fire as a god and all. Okay. Fire is indeed a friend, but as we know, it can be a dangerous enemy once it gets out of control. So we know that fire is of course a friend to us, but if we cannot control it, it can be a dangerous enemy also. So this is all about the lesson fire, a friend and foe. I hope all of you have understood it. Thank you.